Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic, here with an upgrade guide to the new C21 Precon Lorehold Legacies. If you want to pre-order any cards from Strixhaven or these C21 Precons, check out our affiliates. Our Canadian affiliate at Harry Tarantula, where you can use the code CMDR Mechanic at checkout to support the channel, or our international affiliates at TCG Player, where you can find links to both in the descriptions below. So with the full spoilers for the C21 Precon Lorehold Legacies now available, you can find the out-of-the-box list in the description below, I wanted to take a look at some of the new goodies and what I would do with this Precon to make it a unique and strong deck. Remember, making something tuned and powerful is the name of the game. Our box legend is Osgir the Reconstructor. I spoke on Osgir a bit in my first Strixhaven spoiler video, linked up top. But the legend I want to pivot this build to is for one of the legends inside the deck, Alibu, Ancient Witness. This 5-mana legendary golem is a 4/5 with 2 static abilities. The first grants all other artifact creatures you control haste. Great, but not that exciting. It's the second ability that says whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alibu deals X damage to any target and you scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. That's right, not tapped artifact creatures, tapped artifacts. So, tapped mana rocks, artifact lands, or any other tappable artifacts turn into a point of damage and that many cards deeper into your library. This is huge. This is red-white with an attack trigger, sure, but it's not go wide or go tall with an attack trigger. Not with creatures, at least. If you attack with a 1/1 Thopter token, you get to fireball any target for an amount of tapped artifacts you have. Massive value where the scry is just icing on the cake. While the original list is very artifact heavy, there are some changes we'll want to make to lean more in the direction of go wide with artifacts than just attackers. First things first, let's clean up the mana base. While Wizards has been making a lot of great strides in improving the quality of mana bases in Precons, there are still some misses in here. We'll remove Rogue's Passage, Temple of the False God, and Phyrexia's Core. These are colorless lands that are either subpar or don't do what we want in the final deck. I'd also remove the cycling lands and lands that come into play tapped like Lorehold Campus. Sure, it's on theme, but we don't need another tapped land. We'll replace these with basics for the time being, but if you want to upgrade the deck, look into the easy duels like Sacred Foundry, Spectator Seeding, and Sunbaked Canyon. That will increase the consistency of your color generation. But for now, we're concerned with increasing the consistency of casting on curve. Next, we'll want to clean up the mana rocks. This is going to be very important to this build as mana rocks are going to be A, quick and easy ramp, and B, self-tapping artifacts for Alibu. The lower we can fit these on the curve, the better, but we can allow for some 3 mana rocks as our commander costs 5. So in this case, I'd remove Boros Locket and Command Sphere, as well as Hedron Archive. Some of these are just on the wrong spot on the curve for us, and don't do quickly what we'd want them to do. Let's instead add in Talisman of Conviction, Boros Signet, and Everflowing Chalice. These come in at 2 mana, at least, and get us ahead while tapping themselves. That's what we want here more than anything. I'd also recommend Skyclave Relic in the list. Yes, it's a 3 mana rock, but late game it's 3 artifacts for Alibu's trigger. If we want to upgrade a bit, we can find room for Thought Vessel and Felwar Stone in the list. Anything that is an artifact that can be tapped does us a world of good. For creatures, we should focus less on threat level and more on volume or consistency. We'll need to have at least 1 artifact creature attack each turn, and bonus if it isn't Alibu. We don't want to risk losing our commander. Here, we'll want to remove some of our big high-end creatures. Anything over 6 mana is going to be very difficult to justify when our commander costs 5, then 7, then 9. So let's cut Pilgrim's Eye, Meteor Golem, and Horde Smelter Dragon. These are creatures with utility that we can find from other cards in the deck. Let's also cut Hellkite Igniter. In this deck, it's a potential win con, but at 7 mana, we're going to need something more impactful. Let's add in creatures that make creatures, specifically artifact creatures. Thopters, servos, or constructs, whatever we can get. That's going to increase our volume of artifacts that we can have tapped and the trigger that we'll get from Alibu, as well as consistently having an artifact creature we can attack with to trigger Alibu. Hangerback Walker is a good, versatile option. We can cast it early, grow it, and it provides board wipe insurance for us. Loyal Apprentice is a must-have for this deck, ensuring that we'll have a new Thopter to attack with and trigger Alibu as long as we control Alibu. Master Trinketeer can act as a mana sink for us, using our many mana rocks to pump out servo tokens that can attack thanks to Alibu's haste-granting ability, or we can tap to get from another point of our triggers. Another option is Mishra's Self-Replicator. While it's 5 mana for a 2/2, whenever we cast a historic spell, which includes our many artifacts, we can pay just 1 more mana to make another copy of it. That copy can attack, or just sit back and give us another instance of the ability to copy itself. Very valuable for going wide with artifacts. And for non-creatures generating creatures, Genesis Chamber helps crank out little bodies for us to add to our army. Sure, it helps give opponents creatures too, but we'll be using them to far greater effect. An important note is that the original out-of-the-box list is very light on removal. It has 3 board wipes, Cleansing Nova, Rout, and Chain Reaction, but very few targeted removal options. We're left with Dispatch, Return to Dust, and Darksteel Mutation as some of our only means of targeted removal. Let's change some of that up. I'd like to add in Blasphemous Act as an additional board wipe. This is an all-purpose oh no reset button that functions as an important role player in any deck featuring red. Additionally, I'd prefer to remove Cleansing Nova. We don't want to have the option to remove all artifacts, as that's going to be the major portion of this deck. We can replace this with Day of Judgment as a much lower to the ground reset that doesn't threaten all of our precious artifacts. We have the excellent new Rip Apart in the list, but we can also include the classic Wear Tear as a way to deal with artifacts and enchantments. Abrade is useful too, functioning as a modal removal spell, and Swords to Plowshares is perhaps the best single target removal spell in the game. All cards I'd include in priority. Generous Gift and Chaos Warp are both premium targeted removal in our colors too, cards I'd no doubt be including just for their versatility. For card draw, I think we can safely cut Secret Rendezvous. I'd replace it with Skull Clamp to take advantage of our little 1/1 artifact tokens we'll be generating. Valakut Awakening and Wheel of Misfortune are also great, affordable wheels that we can use inside the deck to refill our hands. Since we'll be scrying quite a bit, grabbing a chunk of cards off the top in any circumstance will fill our hands with the cards that we need. Now, there are some additions to the deck I'd personally want to make. Some are going to be relatively budget additions, but some may be a little pricier. Buyer beware. Since we have a commander that triggers on attack, I feel it's important to have some ways to attack more. Since we don't need a volume of attackers to get that trigger, a card like Seize the Day is spectacular, getting us upwards of 3 combats on a single card. If we're set up with a volume of tapped artifacts, we can take out each opponent with each combat. Strionic Resonator also does the trick here, giving us another artifact to tap and letting us get a double up on Alibu's ability. Everything we want. I'd also want to include cards that make a volume of treasures. Treasures are the easiest way to get artifacts in play, even if they aren't self-tapping. This includes Dockside Extortionist and Smothering Tithe. We have Smothering Tithe's new little brother, Monologue Tax, in the list already, but any way we can make more treasures is going to be invaluable. And that's because we're going to work to tap our artifacts on demand. There are 4 includes I feel are must-haves in the list. Clock of Omens, Ghirapur Aether Grid, Lodestone Mirror, and Inspiring Statuary. These 4 cards allow us to tap artifacts on demand, causing Alibu's trigger to be astronomical. Finally, I'd want to include Mycosynth Lattice in the deck. This turns all permanents on the battlefield into artifacts. That means that, at a minimum, every tapped land you control adds to Alibu's attack trigger. You could potentially have Alibu dome someone for X, where X is the number of tapped permanents you control. We could take this and get really nasty and add in Stony Silence or Karn the Great Creator to have a lock in the deck as a backup win con, but I personally wouldn't include it. Beware, or your playgroup may not include you anymore. So here's my final list. You can find a link in the description below. We're focusing on a volume of artifacts, but only attacking with a few of them. We want a way to tap down our own artifacts to get Alibu's trigger to lethal range right away as well. Altogether, I feel this is not an aggro deck, but does require an aggro mindset. Set up your creatures and make for a painful attack. But this is quality over quantity. Let me know what you think about the Lorehold Legacies precon below, and what you think of our tune-up and upgrade for the deck. Look forward to more like these in the days to come as well. As always, folks, good luck and have fun.